All right, welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, Joseph Bruen. This week we have a great guest, none other than Steve Peltier, of course known to the New England wrestling scene as Rex Havok. Rex, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Well, it's your pleasure, I know. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it is. And Rex Havok, you were a big part of the New England scene early on, especially when I was a fan just getting involved in the New England wrestling scene and watching all the local shows. So, enjoying your commentary and, of course, your time with the New England Wrestling Alliance, the NEWA, the Rhode Island Wrestling Alliance as well. You were a part of the scene when, there weren't maybe as many promotions as there are now. So, as far as Rhode Island goes, it was all about the NEWA at that time.
Well, there wasn't much back then. In fact, trying to get this off the ground back in the day, Rock D'Alessandro was a big part of that. He was more interested in doing charity events, local stuff, not really trying to go big. And frankly, how it all happened with us, we got a phone call one day. I had a friend who knew Rock, and they were trying to raise money for a young man's bone marrow transplant. So Rock says to me, "Don't you know anybody in the wrestling? You can help us out." Well, my roommate in college was Jimmy Rothschild, former vice president of the WWF. Poor guy passed away in 2010. But I called up Jimmy. I said, "What can we do?" And long and the short, he put me in touch with a young man, Walter Kowalski. I don't know if you know him, up in Malden, Mass. I talked with him on the phone. And that voice was great. The first time I heard him speak, deep voice, "What I do for you." So Killer Kowalski and I talked for quite a bit. And he told me exactly what we needed to do to raise some money, put me in touch with a couple of the wrestlers. Next thing you know, we started a program. And it was funny because Kowalski said to us, a good friend of mine, Johnny Notalillo, who was a former police officer, he says, "It would be nice if you had some local guys. Maybe you guys could work together and, be the heat for the wrestlers." And, so one night after a couple adult beverages, we came up with the concept of the Maniac Cops. And that's where it started with Johnny. His tag team partner was a young man named Pete Papa, who used to wrestle as Pete Pompey. And they said, "Hey, you got to be the manager." Rex Havok was born, and there it was. So that's how we started the whole thing. And frankly, that night we made $10,000 for the young man. So it started a good little business for us. And frankly, that's all we did. We went from town to town locally just to try to raise money for people. It worked out very well, Joe.
Wow, for a great cause. It doesn't get any better than that. And what a way to start.
Oh, it was wonderful. But the downside was they had the local Axxess production. And at the ring, I just walked up because those guys could wrestle. I was just the manager. I was in great shape back then. I still am, but I won't take this off because there's too many women watching your program. They'll come over here. So as soon as that little camera red light went on, Rex Havok went into, at the time, was I 30 some years old? All those years of watching the old days, I became Superstar Billy Graham, Jimmy Valiant, and Jesse Ventura all rolled into one, and it happened.
So those were your inspirations in the way of the character and the commentary.
I loved it. I thought Superstar was one of the greatest ever. He was, Hulk Hogan copied everything he had. The boas, the pythons, that's all Superstar. And that was in the 70s. The guy was fantastic back then. And Jesse, but the Body, he was one of the best mic guys I could in the business. He was fantastic. So that's where it was. And I can't go, no, Jimmy Valiant was he was Jimmy, then Boogie Man, Boogie Woogie Man and all that. But I still look at him as Jimmy Valiant. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And as we continue with the interview, let's kind of flip the switch a little bit. Let's do something special for the fans.
Sure.
The fans have never seen the man behind the mask. The fans have never seen you, Rex. So let's kind of switch things over from Rex Havok to Steven.
The reason for this, back in the day, I was so darn good looking, all the women in the audience would be looking at me at ringside and they wouldn't follow the matches. So I had to don the mask. But for you, Joe, and I've known you quite a while now, this is a tough one. We will definitely. There we go. I just lost an earbud. But, oh well, you can still hear me there anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, this is it. So
Excellent.
I can find where that went. Oops, I guess I can't. So anyway, we'll go with one of them at this time.
No problem.
On the hair. So this is it.
The
Rex
man
is old
behind
now.
the mask.
So unfortunately, we got old. So this is it. But
how does it feel to take off the mask for the first time for the fans?
Well, I got to be honest with you. It was fun in the day. And this actually, I wore this one. This is the original one. This mask came out in 1988. So it's an old timer. Still in my top drawer every day at work. So I enjoy having it here. And it was a lot of fun. But to be honest with you, this is so much better. And frankly, the gimmick of the mask, back when I wore them, there weren't a lot of mask guys. Now there's everybody's putting on a mask. They've got the different types, the fancy, all this stuff. This was just your plain old black mask, and it represented, you were a bad guy, you were a heel. Today, guy in a mask, you don't know if they're a good guy, bad guy, whatever they're up to. But that's why that one's special to me. So, but I appreciate you allowing me to take the mask off and go like this.
I appreciate you giving us an undercover look, for the fans. So
absolutely,
it's special on both sides for sure. Now, let's talk about the Maniac Cops a little bit.
Sure.
Kind of go into detail, give us some more background on the team, and you kind of told us how it started, but let's hear all about the Maniac Cops.
Well, it was funny. Johnny Notalillo is a guy I met when I was in 10th grade. John had a bare barrel chest, just a monster of a guy. He was a senior when I was a 10th grader, and we played football together. He was in the gym before weightlifting was big. He was bench pressing 400 pounds, just a monster. So, and Johnny was he was very rigid, almost militant, like he followed a regimen every day. Now, Pete Papa, known as Pete Pompey, he was a jobber for the WWF back in the day. Pete was just a fun guy. He just laughed, had a joke, but he knew the business, where John still wasn't quite sure. But Pete was more of the comic end. Johnny was all the business end. But they were both very strong. Both of them could lift weights. They could bench press. They could body slam people. They were a lot of fun. It was just fine tuning Johnny, trying to get him. He was a little bit stiff at first, trying to get him to loosen up. And we found out it was best to have Pete run the show in the ring, throw somebody out, and then Johnny could take care of him on the outside. And certainly, I can't let a good kick go by without passing one on.
Right.
So it was a lot of fun.
And what year was that you first got involved?
I would say 88, 89, because again, my background too. Not only am I a good-looking wrestler, I am also an attorney. That's a reason the mask had to come on. Nobody wanted to know that the lawyer was on late night TV, and so it was kind of one of those things. But what was interesting, even though I wore the mask, you hear this voice. It's somewhat distinctive. I was in NHD Hardware one day, and a guy turned around and he said, "You're Rex Havok." I said, "I wish I were. I'd be a millionaire." And I kind of walked out. But I've been picked up just by the voice alone. So
yeah,
but that's how it started.
When it comes to your voice, I mean, you were definitely an iconic and very entertaining commentator with the NEWA, the New England Wrestling Alliance. Take us back to that time. You kind of told us how your commentary and how your creation was molded and who inspired that. But let's talk about the actual commentary and, that time.
Well, it was fun back then because the Padre was involved in it back. Most people don't, if you remember the old days, he was a great guy. Former
Bob
priest,
Cleese.
as a matter of fact, Bob Cleese. Great, great man. And he's the one who suggested, he says, "Rex, instead of just walking around that 10-minute segment, why don't you come behind the mic with me and we'll work on it?" And at the time, Rock D'Alessandro's son, Rock Joseph, was doing the commentary. And they said, "Why don't we do 3 of us? And then Bob will do the play-by-play, and you just throw in, little subtleties here and there." and it was a great team. The three of us had a lot of fun, and they gave me free reign to do whatever. They said they knew I wasn't stupid enough to do something that would affect the show, yet they knew I was funny enough to take it and have some fun with it. And that's just what we did, Joe. A lot of fun. But it
Let's
was
break
nice
that down
learning
a
from
little bit.
Bob.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I said it was just fun learning from Bob because he knew the business. He was very good. He was an avid fan, and he had been calling this stuff for many years before I got involved. So it was fun to work with him.
For the fans that aren't familiar with NEWA or aren't from the New England area, let's talk a little bit more about Bob the Padre Cleese. Of course, you said he did some commentary with you. He was the ring announcer for quite some time there. Let's talk about him, your personal stories of him.
He also he let the guys do pretty much what they wanted, but you didn't cross the line with the Padre. He would be very matter of fact. A lot of the young guys would come up their first show. They wanted to, just run wild with it. And he would let you go, but he was a big man too. If I would have guessed 6'3", 6'4", and he was solid, he'd put his hand on your shoulder and just kind of give you that little squeeze like, and you knew to shut up at that point because Bob was getting mad. But I loved working with him. But he was in the locker room talking to the boys with the mic. He was very good. He was a good friend to have. And the nice part about this, because you know how the business can be, it's very cutthroat. Nobody wants somebody to get the edge on somebody because they want to take you down. Everybody wants to take you down. Bob wanted to raise you up. He wanted you to be better. He wanted to have a better product. So no matter what we did, whether it was the night of the show, he would want you to be number one. And frankly, some of the promos we did, we had a TV show, Off the Ropes, it was called, little commentator back and forth. Bob would do a good job with that, trying to create everybody's storyline. He would tell you where you were going. He would be the booker, so to speak, and tell everybody what they were doing and plan ahead. It was wonderful to work with him, but it's just a lot of fun. He was a serious guy, but he also knew how to break the ice too. Great guy to work with.
And you mentioned the third man on your team of commentary, Mr. Rock Joseph, the son of the owner. Tell us all about him.
Rock Joseph, another nice guy. In fact, I reached out to him not too long ago because doing this stuff, you lose contact with a lot of folks. In fact, you and I hadn't seen each other. The last time you and I talked, and I have it on my phone, 2013, you and I took a picture together. Right. And you were kind enough to forward that to me, which I still have. But I hadn't heard from Rock Joseph in a long while. And I reached out to him. Rock's still doing very well. And I keep in touch with a lot of the old timers from that group. But Rock's a good guy. He also knew pretty well it was his product. So he didn't want to have his name on something that wasn't good. And back then, I mean, I've seen a lot of the shows today. They put on a pretty decent show for, it wasn't backyard wrestling. It was above that. But we had no budget. We trained in a little town, a little warehouse in Johnston, Rhode Island. Rock Joseph would be there all the time, making sure people would show up. He'd keep an eye on everybody. But he was just another one, very, very into the sport and very into his product. So he did a nice job.
So when these guys were training in Johnston, were there particular trainers that were in place to do that, or was everybody kind of doing their own thing?
There were a bunch of folks doing their own thing, which tended to be a little bit dangerous. Certainly, everybody tried to be the next greatest thing. They would try to get into the acrobatics before they knew how to land. I remember one day watching a young guy, Hugo. He posts on Facebook now and again. I just touched base with him. He did a backflip off the top rope. He landed on his neck. I was nervous as all heck. We all came running in the ring. He was out for a while. Didn't break the neck, had injuries throughout, but those are the kind of stunts they did. And we would say, guys, learn it first because it's not a joke. And like they always say, wrestling is fake. Well, the outcomes are predetermined. We can all talk about that. However, you put those moves on somebody. Those moves work. You come off a top rope and you land poorly, you're going to get hurt. No question about it. And I had an old guy tell me years ago, it was a friend of Pat Patterson's in the WWE, WWF back then. He says, when you land and you hear the guy landed fine, but when you hear that hurt, and it's one of those things, the double bang, the guy got hurt. So you kept that in mind. And at the NEWA, we had a lot of two bangs going down on that ring. Look, a guy like P. Papa, he worked with the guys, and they respected him because he had the background. Another guy that worked with everybody, Tiny the Terrible, Dougie Tunstall. He was featured in the Vice channel, Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah.
He was the New Jack special. And if you look on that, I don't want to brag, but 17 minutes, 11 seconds into the show, Rex Havok is the guest referee wearing a pair of shorts. But you can watch that on your own time. But long and the short, Dougie would work with people too because he had skill. He had some talent. And in fact, Dougie Tunstall was a guy that WWF wanted him to get into the business and work with them. But Dougie, and I can tell him right to his face today, Dougie was a thick-headed young man. And McMahon wanted him in as a comedy routine with his brother. Dougie said, no, I'm a wrestler. Well, for those who don't know Dougie stands 3 foot tall, so Dougie was a comedy show. And in fact, not disrespecting little people, it's just that's what their role was back in the 80s and 90s. That's it. And Dougie didn't want to do that. He wanted to be a pro wrestler. And unfortunately, it didn't pan out. But I know he was offered a contract years ago for sizable money. And
what are your personal memories of Tiny the Terrible and his brother, Half Nelson?
Half Nelson. Well, I've known those guys both in a personal setting as well as a professional setting, and I'll tell about that later. But Tiny was a good guy. I always got along well with him. And to this day, if I saw him in downtown Providence, he'll stop, cross the street, come up and say, Rex, how you doing? We have nice conversations. The problem with Tiny, he knew enough to get by in the business, but he thought he knew more than he did. And sometimes he got a little bit arrogant, a little bit out of control. But Tiny had a gimmick. And I tell you, years ago, Skylar Lowe always said that. He says, you either be good or have a gimmick. And Tiny had the gimmick. Plus, he could wrestle. He and his brother, Half Nelson, and Half Nelson was the quiet one. He didn't talk much. Tiny did all the talking. And you see that New Jack special on the Vice channel. Tiny does a lot of talking in that. But Half Nelson was the quiet one. He took instructions and learned from Tiny. But, he just went with the flow. But he was another kid. I think Half Nelson passed away, too, not too long ago.
He did, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. So poor guy. But so that was Tiny. We had some good guys back then. Bad Boy Billy Black. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah.
He was the guy who I actually branched off from the Maniac Cops to be his manager. And he did a great job in the ring. He's a kid, wasn't built big or strong, but he knew how to work the ring. He did a nice job. And he was a good guy, and he could talk too. He got on the mic and did some nice promos.
Yeah, he was good heel in the wrestling world, and he went on to work for many promotions. Bad Boy Billy. He was definitely a great worker for sure.
Yeah, I liked working with him. Just a nice kid. I liked him. I haven't seen him, 20 years, but really nice guy. And then there was another guy who worked there, Anthony, his first name. Last name, we don't know much, but he wrestled under the character Bambula at one point, almost a Kamala type character. He really killed it, was really good at that. But then people's lives changed, and then he was gone. I didn't see much of him.
Yeah.
But he had a nice gimmick too.
Yeah, for the fans that aren't familiar with him, his name was Anthony Rufo, and he debuted as Dambula, and like you said, it was kind of like a Kamala, Papa Shango type of gimmick. He went on from there to become Marvin the Maniac.
Okay.
He was Marvin the Maniac.
Yeah. Boy, I missed out on a little bit of that stuff, but I enjoyed it back then. I'll tell you, the gap from then till now, I'm kind of missing because I miss the old school stuff. Today, everybody can do everything, and you can't tell where the storyline's going. You got to wait till next week to see what happens. And I guess that sells on television, but I miss the old storylines. You knew right from wrong back then. So, but the NWA, we had a lot of nice guys. Everybody got along. They would have the random practices, as we've talked. They had a set day, but usually everybody showed up every single day it was open. And the days we would do the Off the Ropes talk show, place was full. Everybody wanted 20 minutes on the camera, and we had to edit it all down to 4 or 5 minutes, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Hugo. He had a great wrestling career. He was known as Kevin Charisma for a while. He was also known as Altitude. but
I remember.
specifically in the NEWA, he was known as Double A Antonio Adams.
Yes.
So, what are your memories of Hugo working with him over the years?
He was a small man, little in stature, but boy, he would do the craziest stunts. He was one who wasn't afraid to go off the top rope, do his flips and all that. Um, yeah, and you know what? He had a heart of gold. I mean, it was this big. He would do whatever he could to help you. And his big, he wanted the show to be better. Always wanted to be better, and he would work. You do this, you do that, and I'll sell it. Don't worry, I'll sell it. And he always did he did. He was a great guy. I loved working with him. And he would also mouth off to Rex too, which I always enjoyed. I didn't like the folks that just kind of looked at me and weren't quick enough to keep up. I liked when you fought back, and Hugo was one that could always give me he'd always throw a few lines at me, and you sit there and grab the mic. Hey, you got me, you son of a gun. Yep. So I loved it. So, and then with that, another guy, I don't know if you remember Studley Steve Stallion.
Yes.
Studley Steve was a big guy, and he was a difficult guy to work with because he was number one. He thought he was the greatest gifts to God. But I always told him I was the greatest thing that happened to wrestling since they invented the tights. Old pun, back in ancient Greece, they wrestled naked. Thank God for the tights. So anyway, Studley Steve was a fun guy. He was the champion at the time, but we were invited to Buddy Cianci's City Hall one day, and we were doing another promotion for something. One of the schools needed a roof or whatever. So we get in there, and Studley Steve's trying to talk with Buddy Cianci. Buddy, as you know, former mayor of Providence, had a talk show on the radio. He was phenomenal. So as he's talking with Stud, because he was the champion, I then grabbed the mic from both of them and just went into it. And Buddy turned, he goes, they told me someone was the lawyer. Now I know who that is. And he and I had a fun time. But so I remember Cianci saying to Studley, he said, boy, look at your arms. They're inflated. And that's when I grabbed the mic. I said, no more than your city budget. Now let's get down to business. And that's where it went. But it was a lot of fun. And Buddy Cianci became a very good friend of mine. He was a guy I could call up at any time. And in fact, we did a promotion at Johnson & Wales years ago. I don't know if you remember Radio Meets Wrestling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was a show I teamed up with Bill Keeler from Kicks 106 at the time. Wolverine was tagged up with Danger Boy Alfredo, who's still around. And Danger Boy, I'll talk about him because I really like him. He's got a special place for Rex. But long and the short is we were doing a show at Johnson & Wales, and Buddy Cianci did all he could, roll out the red carpet. He wanted that place full. And we were in their gym. There was not a ticket to be had. It was sold out. And it was the first time NEWA, there was no standing room only. You could not get in or out of that arena. And that was a great night for all of us. We had a lot of fun. But that's when I teamed up. Danger Boy, he and I, how it was supposed to end was Rex Havok throws him into the ropes, picks him up, and throws him down. Alfredo goes under my rope, goes to the other side, tries to hit me. Well, as you know, in the business, that's called you getting stiffed. So there's only one way to go back at that. You wind up and you hit. So I pulled him in the corner again. I said, Alfredo, he's going down. He goes, I'm not going down tonight. Threw him again. He ducked, hit me again. The last time, I was bigger than him at the time. I grabbed him. Boom. My friend John was in the front row. He stood up, and his head came like this, Alfredo's. He goes, I heard that from here. Is he okay? But Alfredo and I have got a great relationship. To this day, we're very good friends. So I really respect him. And he's done a lot in the business. He is nonstop, that kid. So,
still going.
He called me up, I would say 5 months ago. He said they were having a Relics Meets Wrestling. And he goes, boy, I would love Rex Havok to show up. Well, we didn't tell anybody, but I showed up dressed in, jacket and whatever, a pair of jeans. Nobody knew who I was. As soon as they started the match, Dana Cam was there, a couple of the other guys, Thrash. I went in the back, put the mask on, and I came down the aisle. Oh, that guy got more heat. It was so much fun. But it was a great couple minutes hanging out with the boys again.
Yeah.
So
talking about the NEWA, what were some of the different venues that you remember going to, whether it's high schools or different outside festivals?
Well, we did an outside at Federal Hill every year. Big Italian neighborhood back in the day, right under the pineapple, crossing the street. There's a big pineapple there welcoming everybody. that was open to everybody. That was just an outdoor show, wide open. We did that several years. 1 year it rained, but we still carried on. We did a lot of like local stuff, little tiny venues, a lot of high school gyms, middle schools in Johnston. We did Cumberland High School, a lot of that type of stuff. I remember when my daughter was a first grader, there were the PTO, the PTA was back then, wanted to raise money for they were going to do Pampered Chef. I said, I can get 10 grand in here in a weekend. Let me bring the boys in. Well, they let me bring in the wrestlers, and we had a couple, like back then, I think Superfly Snooker came into that show for us. It was a lot of fun. But the NWA, we did a lot of the small shows, a lot of little gyms. If anybody called us, we were more than happy to put on a show for them. And Rock D'Alessandro was really good about that. He would not turn anybody down. He was always there, hot of gold. Yeah, he wanted to make sure if there was a little money to be made for somebody that we gave him the effort and made it. So,
and let's talk about Rocco. Rocco D'Alessandro is the owner. He's the man behind the scenes.
yeah.
He's the one, running the promotion. A lot of people don't know who Rocco is because he was pretty private. He was behind the scenes. Tell us all about Rocco D'Alessandro.
Well, Rocco smoked his cigars, which made us all gag. Everywhere you went, he was smoking. Rocco stood, I would guess, 5'6", 5'7". He had hands. Now, the only one hand that was bigger than his was Killer Kowalski. When I shook his hand, it just wrapped around me. But Rocco had these big sausage fingers. Big. He worked hard his whole life. But again, just like his son, hot of gold. Rocco ran the scenes behind, but he also let everybody do their thing and put, between his son, Rock Jr., and Rock Joseph and Bob Cleese, let them control it. But Rock gave the direction. And Rock always liked to be the good guy, let everybody else be the bad guy when you tell him you can't do this or you can do that. But Rock ran the show in his own little way. He played good cop, bad cop in the same situation. Yeah. But as a matter of fact, it was funny because I got out of it. I hadn't done anything in wrestling for a long, long time. And my career took off and I did my thing. But one day I got a phone call. They were doing some type of reunion show. I forget what the heck it was, but I know there was a poster set up because another attorney told me you're on that poster. So Rock called me at my home, and it was funny. Again, I'm talking a lot, Joe. Bear with me, but
it's fine.
I have my son who's 10 years older than my daughter. My son saw the wrestling in its day. My daughter never did. We were at my house eating Chinese food on a Saturday night when I got a phone call from Rock Joseph. He goes, Rex, where are you? You're supposed to be here. I go, Rock, nobody told me anything about it. Long and the short, he says, come down and gave me the address. And that was in Lincoln, Rhode Island. There was some show there. I said, Rock, I don't even have the mask. He says, I've had your mask. I've had it for years. So basically, Rock found the mask wherever he had it. I said, you sure? Told my daughter, you want to see Dad wrestle? Come on down. And it was the first time she got to see me. It was a lot of fun. She was in high school at the time. But we did a show there, and Rock gave me I pulled in the back. There was police. You can't park here. Rock comes running out. That's Rex Havok. He parks right there. Okay, you're Rex Havok? Next thing you know, the mask was here, put it on, and there we go. So it was a lot of fun. So
now, often you were a man of mystery, and you would often, I would see you pull up to a show and leave a show with the mask on, and that's how dedicated you were.
Well, there was that kayfabe. Remember that?
Yeah.
It was one of those where I think that was necessary back then. As I told you earlier, today everybody's blended. You don't know who's good, who's a heel, who's a face to this day. And every day they change. Back then you knew. And you could not see Rex get in a car with Alfredo. I would drive down the road. Alfredo would meet me at the bar, and then we'd go from there. But you could not have that. You had to keep that back then. I thought it was very important. And again, I was brought up old school. I think that worked. And I think if it went back to it today, it'd be a lot better. But again, that's my own opinion. But we played the characters, and you didn't get out of character until you had to. But yeah, I always got in the car and I drove away with that mask because the other thing too, your fans are there. When you were a young kid, you went there. Oh, there goes Rex. He drives like, So, and I always used to bring. I had a couple cars, but always bring the bad one because Rex was a heel. There were times when there were bottles under my car, fireworks blown up under my vehicle. Tire pressure was taken out, so we always had a pump in the car just in case. So you had to watch it back then because people were a little nuts. So
we took it seriously.
It was fun. Absolutely. So, but that was it was all a good run. It was so much fun back then.
Well, I was one of those kids. I was there in 1993 was my very first independent show as a fan,
Yeah,
and I went to, I believe it was North Providence High School for the NEWA. So all the stars of NEWA were there. They also had Valentine, Virgil, and Santana from WWF. So that was my first experience at independent
yeah,
wrestling. From there, I was hooked, and
yeah,
you would see me at every single Federal Hill show for
yeah.
NEWA and all those events. And it was just special. It was something special in the area. It was nice for the fans to have an opportunity to see all the different characters up close and personal.
But we also appreciated you guys too. We knew what we were. I mean, I wasn't Hulk Hogan. I was Rex. And if you were taking the time to come, I wanted to make sure you enjoyed your night. So we put the time in, and everybody did. That's what made it fun back then. But when we see a young kid, there were a lot of young kids that I'd go up to and talk to, and sometimes they'd be nervous. They'd back up. They see the mask. I said, "I'm your buddy. Don't tell anybody. Shh, quiet." And they'd shake my hand and had a good time. We had a young man who's an attorney. He and his wife just had a child. The kid was, oh gosh, maybe 3, 4 years old, and they took him to one of the shows. He was scared to death. I went up and chatted with him. Oh, that young man now was in his almost 40s now, 30 something years old. I still hear from him all the time. Hey, you want to go to this show? Want to go to that one? Nice kid. But we hooked him at 3 or 4 years old just for being nice. So, and
Now,
that's a
Rock,
big thing because can I just back up a more? I'm sorry I keep interrupting you, but you know
no,
me, I
you're
can't
fine.
stop talking. Uh, you mentioned some of the other wrestlers. We did a couple shows with the Hammer, Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Yeah,
Uh, he was tough to deal with backstage, very difficult. Wanted to be by himself. And then after he had his few beers, because they all came to the show with their beers and that, he would lighten up. But he was all business from the beginning until you got him alone later on. And then it was a lot of fun to chat with.
yeah.
I'm still friends with him on Facebook. I reached out to him. I've talked to him before, but he was a nice guy. Um, but a lot of the stars who'd come down were not so nice. They were a little difficult because we were not in their ring, they're not their level. We were insects to them. And we didn't want guys like you, a young kid, feeling that, because we were the kids to them. And
Right.
some of them just weren't nice. But anytime we saw a young guy like yourself or anybody else, we went out of our way to make you appreciate the program.
Yeah.
So and that's what was different.
And Rocco D'Alessandro, as we spoke about, he was the figurehead for the NEWA. But who was actually booking backstage? Was it him, or was it a collaboration?
Well, it was a collaboration. Bob Cleese did a lot of that. And then some of the wrestlers worked on that too. They would bring their ideas, try to figure out. Studley Steve did an awful lot of that. And one other guy I forgot to mention earlier, the Mountie. He did an awful lot of telling people who was going where, because he had a little brief stint over at the WWF back then as well.
Yeah.
He was a local guy, drove a tow truck back here. Nice guy, but he would put his 2 cents in. And because he had the experience, people listened to him. But they worked together. So they tried to do some storylines, but sometimes inexperience took over too. Like the storylines would start getting good and then they shut them down and did something else. Or the talent decided, well, I'm better than that. I'm going to do this. We had a lot of that too, because in the business, people have egos and sometimes they get carried away and they think they're better than what they are. Wrestling's a progression. You don't start at the top. And you got to realize you got to start down here. When you start at the bottom, work your way up. But everybody wants to be here. You can't. And sometimes egos took over. And if somebody wasn't getting, they're getting the heat from the arena, they got pissed and I'm not doing that next week. And what do you do? Because we're not getting paid, So you can't force them. And then you just try to move on and you do the best you can. But that's why some of our storylines were underdeveloped, and it was no fault of Rock. It was just the fault of a lot of egos, and people thought they were better than what they were.
Yeah.
So
now, when it comes to some of the bigger guys that were in the NEWA, they maybe weren't there as long. They weren't regulars per se, but any memories of Judge Grable or the Party Man Juan King?
Both of them, they were fun guys, nice to hang around. But they were busy. They did things outside the ring, and it was kind of this was a release for them, so to speak. And unfortunately, they came and went. They were not steady people there. We had another young man who used to dress as a whale, a killer whale. Oh gosh, he was around for a bit. He had a funny gimmick, just laid back, but then all of a sudden he was gone. He just didn't hang around. But that's what happened. It was because it was not so structured. It was more of you come on down, do what you have to do, and we'll put you in the show next week. Some people weren't getting the ring time. Some people weren't getting the promos, things that they wanted, and they disappeared. And then Rock would always welcome you back. You could be gone for 6 months, and hey, you want to come down? We're doing a show. Come on down, and they take you in and do that. But yeah, I can't explain why they weren't there, but I'm just assuming it's other issues, other things in their life took them away. So.
And the NEWA's sister company was the RIWA, the Rhode Island Wrestling Alliance. What were the differences between the two? Was it Rock running both of them? Was it the same roster? Were you a part of both shows?
I now and again on the Rhode Island, once in a while I did that, but I was still old school. I felt I owed it to Rock ran the NEWA, and that's where we started. I wasn't going to go out on loan, especially, and again, Joe, I say we weren't getting paid. If I was getting paid and doing that, this was all voluntary time. I was trying to raise money for different charities. That's what we did. But I felt obligated to Rock. I said, I'll stay right there because that's where the brand was. And that's why I did a couple shows there. I did some on independent circuits here and there. That's, matter of fact, I mentioned earlier, we were looking at Abdullah the Butcher. I met him. I did a show with him in New Jersey. First time I ever met Abby. Larry, he's one of my dear friends to this day. I talked to him just the other day. He's recovering from an issue, but he should be okay. So we were driving down the New Jersey Turnpike together. Now, Abdullah the Butcher is a guy who scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. I don't know about you, but I was scared. Here I am driving on the highway, sitting in the passenger seat. And back then, the toll booth was 75 cents to go through the New Jersey Turnpike. Abby says to me, hey, Rex, watch this. He put the coins in his head and leaned out the window at the girl taking it. She jumped back, scared to death. So it was funny. I had not talked to him in several years. And 2 years ago, he was up here in Rhode Island for the Fan Fest they had. I think you were part of that group. What the Fan Fest at the Holiday Inn at the Crossing.
Yep.
I got a call from Abdullah that day. He says, Rex, where are you? I'm in Rhode Island. I said, Abby, you kidding me? So we started talking, and when I showed up, we hugged. I sat with him the whole time at his table, and he goes, remember that time we were driving down the road? I said, you remember that story, huh? He goes, that was a riot. So we rekindled that, and I helped him over the last year or so with his legal issues in Georgia, but he's one of those that's still a good friend of mine. But again, that's how we worked in the business, a lot different, but we did shows wherever they would send us. Again, we didn't get money. The stars who came in to do the cards, they got a couple $100. That was it. We did it just for the fun of it. So it was a lot of fun.
So outside of the NEWA, were there other promotions that you traveled to work for?
There were later on, after I would say late 90s, early 2000s. That was probably toward the end of it. Now and again, I'd have some of my old friends from the business call, hey, Rex, we're doing a show here. We're going here. I would be up Salisbury Beach. I did shows up there. I did shows in Maine. Like I said, Abdullah the Butcher, we did a show in New Jersey. Wherever they would call, and there was several of them, Joe. They just say, hey, we need a filler. And they knew with me, I could talk. I could do what I had to do, and I'd go with the flow. So I was a safe bet to bring in. But I did a number of those shows, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah. In fact, you see my picture behind me with Ric Flair. Yep. I show you that one. Bear with me. And I'll just bring this one up. That's me and Rick after a show in 93 or 94. And that was at one of the shows down south. He and I hit it off quite a bit. We had a nice time, and he was just here. We couldn't hook up at the time, but we did chat. So it was nice to talk with him.
And you got the promo photo back there as well?
I do. Well, and that one, I'll show you this one. Bear with me. I had him sign it back then, 1993. And if you can see, it says, to Steve, greatest manager in the business today, Ric Flair. So I didn't ask for Rex. I asked for Steve on that one. So
yeah.
But he was a lot of fun. I saw him, probably 5 years, 6 years, when he was up here in Rhode Island for Pawtucket Stadium, the Paw Sox Stadium. They did an
Yes.
outdoor show right before he got sick for the first time. He was up here and we had a nice time. We all hung out, had some drinks that night. And that's what's nice with the wrestlers. I mean, you get along with them all. As long as you're not a pain in the ass, they like you. You don't try to take their line. Like I'm not going to go one-on-one with Ric Flair. He's Ric Flair. So when he throws the zingers your way, you take them and you play the game. He always appreciated that. But you stay friendly with these guys and you have a good time over the years, and it's a lot of fun. And that's still to this day. If I could pick up the phone, I have a secretary here who loves Ric Flair. I said, "Come here, dial the number." That's not him. It's him. Talk to him. It's fun. Yeah. So, and I did that. We had a young intern who loved Abdullah the Butcher. I said, "You want to talk to him?" Larry picked up the phone. It was a year ago. I called. I said, "Hey, Larry, a kid wants to talk to you." And the kid goes, That's not Abdullah the Butcher." "Yeah, it is. You just talked to him." So, but it's just fun.
We talked about some of the different locations that the NEWA would run shows at. Did you have a favorite? Was there a location you'd kind of look forward to every year? Like, so just an extra.
I love the Federal Hill. That was fun outdoors because not only can you go hang around, nobody really kind of paid attention. And for me, I could get out of character easy. I could take the mask off, drop the jacket. I could go across the street and get a sandwich, eat something, come back in, put everything back on, and be ready to go. I like that one. But also, one of my favorite was the Johnson Wales Gym. I mean, that was just a great night. Radio meets wrestling, and it was so much fun.
Yeah.
That was a good time. But the outdoor shows were fun. We used to do one in Cumberland, an outdoor show at their feast. That's where Superfly Snook and Bam Bam Bigelow came to hang out with us. Bam Bam was a lot of fun. Superfly, he was different, but Bigelow was a lot of fun to sit and talk with. So I enjoyed chatting with him. And that was the night I actually beat him in a battle royal. I hit under the ring, came up from behind, and he went over. It was madder than hell. I thought he was serious at first, so I took off, but got him back in the locker room. We were good.
One of my earliest shows, I guess it was probably 1998. It was Cumberland Fest, and it was Bam Bam Bigelow versus Marvin the Maniac for the NEWA. I remember being there as a fan. It was just before I was getting into the business. So it was probably around 98, 97. And what was Bigelow like behind the scenes at the shows?
At that time, when I remember him, he was struggling with addiction. So I know during that show or prior to it or even afterwards, there was some partaking in that stuff. But he was pleasant. Even when doing that stuff, he got a little hyped up a little bit, but he was a good guy to talk to. I sat with him quite a bit and chatted, and we got along. But I knew there was something. And then you watch the specials, what happened with him and addictions. And that's what gets a lot of these guys, Joe. I tell my friends in the office, if you ever want to know what's going on with professional wrestlers, watch the movie The Wrestler. It is 100% dead on. That is exactly what happens. Yeah. You go to these shows, you see these poor guys, they can barely move, and the problem is that a lot of them made good money, but they didn't manage the money right. They didn't have somebody to watch out for them. What they have is a lot of people who want to take from them, and we get that left and right. Everybody wants to grab your money. I see that with my buddy Abdullah. Tony Atlas, look at poor Tony. The guy, he's another nice guy. In fact, when he was up here a couple of years ago in February, he was with us at the bar at the hotel, hanging out with Tony all night. And I remember him as a kid, but Tony's still Tony. But it's a shame that these guys made millions of dollars and it becomes the wrestler, Mickey Rourke. That's what it is. And they're all injured. They're all hurt. And back then, if you're not a top level guy, you have to wrestle. So what do? You take your prescriptions, I remember the guys in our locker room, hitting themselves up with, whatever cortisone or whatever they were able to get over the counter, taping up, the wraps, the whole bit. It was awful. And that's why I was glad I did the manager and I didn't have to get beat up. But these poor guys who did it, it's awful. Right. Not many of them had a career to fall back on, which is a problem.
So I've got some more names to touch on.
Sure.
Any memories of Bulldozer?
I do remember Bulldozer. I worked hard. Just worked hard in the ring. Tough kid. But he wasn't full of himself either. He was a regular guy to chat with. I remember talking to him quite a bit. He worked all the time, always coming trying to be better. So I liked him a lot.
And another wrestler there in the NEWA who every once in a while would be a guest commentator, the Dream Lord.
The Dream Lord came in between me. He was there in that, and frankly, didn't talk much to me because I was Rex. You didn't want to be Rex. You want to beat Rex. So when he came and grabbed the mic, he was better than Rex. I kept telling him, "You wish you were." So sit over there. And then my ego took over. But yeah, we went back and forth a little bit on that. But it was just, unfortunately, some of those guys, you can't have a good connection because there's the jealousy or the ego takes over. I never had much with that gentleman, but that's why I say out of that whole NEWA, Dana Cam, I tried to get him a job with me over here recently, and Alfredo, we're just best of friends to this day. You know, those are the guys we stayed together with, but nobody cared. Nobody had you beat me tonight, I'll beat you tomorrow. That's how it was. But go ahead, I'll let you keep going because you get that impatient look. I can see that you're ready to roll.
Oh, I'm always ready to roll, you know. Now, how about the tag team of Fire and Ice? We're talking about Iceberg, Sunny D, and Inferno.
They were good. They could have done more. I think they should have done more. They did a nice job together. I like the way they performed, how they handled themselves. They could do great promos. They were a good group, and they always worked. They tried to be better than what they were, and they put the effort in. So they were a good tag team.
And we have the senior referee, the official for the NEWA, Bob Costa. At one point,
I used to tell him the only two people you see better than in this entire world are Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder. The poor man, he was a blind ref. Poor guy. He helped a lot of people. He knew what to do in the ring, and a lot of people don't appreciate the role of a referee. They make sure you're okay. They run the show. You get some instructions here or there. He can see what's going on that you can't see, and he did a great job. Very good guy.
Two other referees there. You had Sean Markey and Ish Perez.
Oh, Sean Markey I always liked. He was quiet, didn't say too much to Rex, but Ish Perez was never shy to mouth off to me and tell me to go shut up. Ish was he was a good guy too. I like both of them. But and they knew their role too. They did a great job for what they had to do, and they showed up every week. Every week they were there. So nice guys.
And as a fan, growing up, who was your Mount Rushmore, your top four of all time? And really, it could be any era.
I can go superstar Billy Graham, number one in my mind. I just loved him. I think he was ahead of his time. You go back to the Bruno Sammartino era. Could Bruno do a promo like Superstar? Nobody came close. Right. Plus, he had the Grand Wizard. What a manager, Ernie Roth. This guy was good. But Superstar's right there. A couple of the other guys I liked a lot. One guy I became good friends with, Hawk Road Warrior. I met him at Rocky Point, and he and I started talking. And he's the one who talked to me. I didn't know enough about it. The lifters in my boots. I remember because I was 6'1" back in the day. I've since gotten older, but Hawk was a decent size. But look at Hawk's boots in the ring. I went out and got a pair like Hawk. I was 6'5", and the day I wrestled Alfredo, I was up here, and Alfredo, I remember him saying, "What the heck did you do?" I was with Hawk the other night. So, but I loved Hawk Road. The Road Warriors I liked. Joe was a nice guy, but I really loved Hawk. He was just a good guy. And we sat at Rocky Point Park, which is a local area in Rhode Island, since closed. But they came up. They were the NWA champs at the time, and it was big for them to be in this area because we still were pseudo territory at that point. But they came up, and I got to go backstage, hang out with them, and we ended up going out to a bar afterwards and had some drinks. Nice guy.
Wow.
So we got those two. I always liked Jimmy Valiant. I said that earlier in the show when he was the Valiant Brothers, Chicago, New Orleans, baby. That's where it's at. They were the champs. And the last guy I put on that list because I think he's just fantastic is Bret the Hitman Hart. I just love Bret. He's underrated in a lot of people's minds, but the guy could wrestle. He could do his promos. He did so much, and he got screwed. So he's also one who tells me about how things work. But I go 3 old school, and I get into a almost new school Bret Hart. So those are my
Brett's one of
four.
those guys that could work with the technical wrestlers. He could work with the giants, the big guys. I mean, he could do it all. He could work with anybody.
And he could make you look good. He carried you. His matches. Now he was in great shape too. Another thing that, because Ric Flair, I didn't put in that group because he'll get mad at me. But Flair and Steamboat, those matches were phenomenal because they trained back in the old days. They would do our matches like it was nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know. People don't realize you do a 10-minute match, you're spent. To do an hour match, they could do it. Bret Hart could do an hour. He can do an hour and 20 minutes, an hour 30. But he grew up with his father. If you had to survive in that basement, but he could go on all night long. He was phenomenal. So just how I think of things. So.
Any memories of Jose Perez, El Diablo?
He was with us a short time. I remember the mask. I remember him coming to the ring. Kept to himself, and I didn't have much interaction, to be honest with you, Joe. But I remember doing his matches, watching him. He just did his thing the best he could, and he just didn't interact with me much. But I thought he was a nice guy. Worked his matches, and he was always there. So that's about it. He was just always showed up and ready to work.
How about fan interactions over the years? Any fan interactions stick out more than the other?
Well, I like, matter of fact, when I brought my daughter to the show, I said, just watch. I said, I am going to find the heaviest set woman in that audience and just watch what I do. And as a heel, you want to bring the heat. You want to get it going. I remember the show she came, we were up in Lincoln. This lady had to weigh 500 pounds. So I grabbed the microphone and I said, look at you, Denise. What happened to you? You and I went to the prom together. I come back convalescing on the islands in the Dominican Republic, and you're eating over at Subway. Unfortunately, you didn't follow Jared's sections. You're fatter than ever. I said, you're going to be flying over Gillette Stadium on Sundays. What is wrong with you? She got all offended. Her husband or boyfriend, whatever, he gets offended. Next thing you know, the sodas are being thrown at me. I'm yelling at them. It was just so much fun. We got backstage, and a couple of the guys go, boy, you really got the arena going tonight. I said, find the fat lady. You get it going every time. So, and that's what I always tried to do that. But I loved, we did that recent show, the Relics, and I did the same routine with this heavy set woman in the front. I got hit with all kinds of stuff, cans of soda, hot dogs. It would all, matter of fact, the back of my mask, I didn't clean. There's a mustard stain from the hot dog that she threw at me. So it was a good time.
Oh, man. Now, if you could go back and pick one memory, your number one memory in your whole time of pro wrestling, what would that be? Anything stand out?
I like the first day I did this. My first promo after the match with the Maniac Cops. When that red light on that camera went on, Joe, it was like, I'm going to unload. And I did. And it was so much fun because I was able to get all the years out. I got to do what I wanted to do. And it was so much fun. I'd go back to that in a heartbeat. And it's funny because when I started doing this stuff, at the time I mentioned earlier, I'm an attorney. I was working with a law firm in Rhode Island, known for representing unions. Well, at the time, there was Jesse the Body had the big thing, let's get unionized.
Yeah.
My friend Jimmy Rothschild called me one day. He said, Steve, they love your character. Vince hates where you work. You will never be here. And that was my curse. I knew early on, which was maybe a blessing, that I wasn't moving in the business other than what I did. But I worked for a union law firm, and that was the last thing McMahon wanted in the 90s. So, and my friend Jimmy, he passed away in 2010. He told me that. He says, you had a great gimmick. You just were a union lawyer. They didn't want you here. So, but I go back to day one when it was just fun. That first day was fun.
Yeah.
And then I learned the business. So
you got that picture in the background there with the immortal Hulk Hogan. What are your memories of meeting the Hulkster?
He was interesting. He was very standoffish. And in fact, I went to meet him he was in Rhode Island promoting his beer. And I said to myself, I have Ric Flair. I know Ric Flair. I have to have a picture with Hogan. So I actually ran into Alfredo there. I said, make sure, I get this photo. And he says, no problem. And Alfredo worked it out. I was standing in line with all the other people. Nobody knew who I was, but I was wearing black suit, black shirt, red tie, because when I was in character, it was always the black shirt. I figured today I'd go with the white, knowing I'd take the mask off for you. But when I was waiting in line, it had to be 90 degrees. I am dying. So somebody goes, what are you doing? Suit, tie, take it off. I said, just wait. As soon as I get up to the front of the line, Hogan turns and looks at me, and he's got this stupid look on his face. I put the mask on, and he started smiling. And then I walked up. He goes, "Hey, man, what are you doing?" I said, "Just I'm Rex Havok, brother, and I'm here to have some fun." We talked a little bit, shook my hand, was very nice to me, and we did our thing. And frankly, you could only have the company there was taking the photo. They let me snap about 20 of them. So I have that hanging in the office. They got a bunch of them in the office here too. So, but he was good to me, very nice man. And unfortunately, he's gone.
Yeah.
So,
Any memories of Kid Liberty in the NEWA?
Kid Liberty, again, not he came in at a different time from when I was there, and I wish I had more. I've seen the matches, I've seen what he's done, but I don't know. I just never had much interaction. Because again, too, when some of those guys would come in and out, I was kind of the heel. I was the commentator. I was not the closest guy to get to because I didn't grow up with these guys. I didn't live with them, and they all knew I was an attorney. So it kind of put a little division between us two until you got to know me.
Yeah.
And like Tiny the Terrible, he hated me at first, and like I said, I represented him. He and I get along great, but it was always that, and because of my background was a problem, Joe. So, and I think that might have been factored in. It factored in on a lot of the guys. They just kept separate. So, and at the time, a lot of the guys were struggling and trying, but I had a career, so when I pulled up, on a Saturday, maybe they didn't like my car. Maybe they didn't like, what I was wearing. And just something, they just didn't like it. But not everybody was friendly. And again, I understand that, nor do they have to be. But so one way or the other with him, I don't know. So I just keep it there.
When it comes to the territories of pro wrestling, obviously WWF kind of, bought up all of the top talents all around.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that process and that actually happening, kind of cherry picking?
That had to happen because how long can you keep the promotions going, especially in the cable age? That's when it started. Once McMahon got a hold of that cable, he's worldwide. You can't have a territory, small area. Like you take Mid-South, you take, world class. You could not do that. And McMahon saw that coming where everybody else didn't. McMahon was always forward looking. He wanted to see what would happen in 20 years from now, where everybody else said, this is how we do things. Everything evolves. McMahon saw that coming. He jumped at it, and everybody else, but Ted Turner was, decades behind him, so it's tough to catch up. And McMahon, I would have done that too. Knowing you got cable TV, you got a contract with USA coming through, whatever, grab as many as you can, all from the big money, because you're going to make it tenfold. And he did. So, and in fact, I go back to my friend Jimmy Rothschild. When he started there, they were a $2 million a year enterprise. He made a $200 million a year place when he left.
Wow.
Because he was senior vice president of that organization. And these are conversations I've had with him. McMahon knew what to do. And why wouldn't you jump at that? Use what you can. Use your access. And he did. So, and the other guys were old school. They didn't move. You can't just sit there and say, things are going to be fine. Your neighborhood develops. Everything around you develops. We're getting a new bridge in Rhode Island. Come on, you can't use the old one. Get a new one.
Yeah.
McMahon saw that. So he got the new bridge. So
what would you say is the most challenging part of being in the wrestling business for you personally?
For me personally was home life. I had a wife who thought it was stupid, who felt that you're an attorney, you have to carry yourself above that. I had a complaint filed against me from another attorney saying that I was acting unprofessional. And as an attorney, you have a code of professional responsibility you have to adhere to. And I remember one of the Supreme Court judges came to my aid and says, if every lawyer in the state could raise money like Steve raised this year, because I actually put together the money we raised in a particular, this was going back 95, 96, somewhere around there. Like $70,000 doing these stupid shows for different charities. I brought that to the Supreme Court, and they said, I wish all lawyers could do that. Steve, go home, keep it up. And I'll add to it, once that complaint was filed, I had a number of Superior Court judges back in the old days, I won't mention the name, they get mad at me. They came to the shows, and it was a lot of fun, to have those guys there. They all had my back. And a former chief judge of the Rhode Island Supreme Court loved watching me on TV. So, but that was a tough time balancing that with home life. Sometimes you got to travel. sometimes if you're going up to Bangor, Maine, for example, you can't come home that night. You got to get a hotel room. Then it's like, what are you doing? You're hanging out, drinking with the boys, get home. It's a tough life for a guy to be on the road. It's a lot of work, and especially balancing a career, it's tough. So.
Now, do you have any memories of the ring crew for the NEWA shows? Who was responsible for putting the ring together normally?
Rock Joseph yelled at everybody, and I think everybody had a hand in it. Bad Boy Billy always helped out. He was right there because he liked the ring a certain way, and he didn't trust anybody to do it right. But we had the same guys there every week. They would assemble everything, and everybody helped out. So to say there was just one group of guys, there were probably 4 or 5 guys that did it every time, but a lot of the wrestlers jumped in and helped out too. And they, like I mentioned, Bad Boy. Bad Boy was funny. He was particular, wanted things a certain way. He wanted to make sure the turnbuckle was right. He wanted to make sure there was enough tension because he would get in there, go off the rope. No, tighten that up, tighten. He was funny. So, but the ring crew was fun. And after the show, we all helped them break it down because the quicker we got out of there, the quicker we go to the bar. So win or lose, drink the booze is what we used to say. So that's what we did.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Now, another thing is, a couple faces that were definitely there when you were there in the NEWA. We haven't seen in a long time. Curious about Dragonfly, if you have any memories of Dragonfly, or Gorgeous Gino Giovanni.
2 guys. Dragonfly had a lot of potential. He was sporadic, came in and out, in and out. He had a lot of ability, but there was something, always smiling. Every time he came to the arena, smiling, ready to go, but he wasn't reliable. He wasn't there all the time. You didn't know what was going on. Something else was preoccupying that guy, but he had a lot of ability and a lot of talent. Now I'll go to Gorgeous Gino Giovanni. That kid was fun. He weighed 50 pounds. He had his gorgeous valet bringing him into the ring. But he was just a fun kid. And he and Bad Boy Billy had a great run going back and forth because I was the manager. And I used to threaten him. I said, I'm going after your valet tonight. And Gino's a young kid. Now I'm a lot older than these guys. And you better leave her alone. Don't go after her, Rex. And as he was wrestling, I'd be out there trying to put my arm around her or something. He'd get mad for real in the ring because I guess they were dating. He'd get so ticked off at me. But I had fun. Joe, I would push buttons and I get under people's skin. But if I knew I could get you, I did it 10 times as much.
Right.
So,
2 other names to touch on. I've got the Reverend Chain Link.
Oh, geez. Let me stop you there. The Reverend was a wonderful guy. I have a picture of he and I, and again, I go back to the TV show, that movie, The Wrestler. Chain Link was a great kid. Loved him. He would do all he could to promote me. Always wanted me to be better. He would do promos with me. He could talk. He would love to do a little extra. And he would always say, let's do this, Rex. Let's do that. When he knew what he had and always wanted to get to the top. He goes, you're this block. I'll be this block. You be this block. I remember talking that way with him. And I remember going to that reunion show in Lincoln. Was the last time I saw him. He was in a wheelchair, really hurt bad. He had kidney issues. I gave him a hug and started crying. Just a wonderful kid. I loved him. And for the longest time on Facebook, his picture was there with me. I think it's still, I don't go on much anymore, but I think his picture's still there with me. Just a great guy. Loved him.
Yeah.
So.
And the other is Bronco Jesse James.
Bronco Jesse James. He is another fun kid. I always liked him. He did his job, worked hard. He always wanted to be number one. He would try to get you. He would always throw little digs my way too. Yeah, you remember all the guys. Son of a gun, you're bringing back memories for me. This is nice. But I wish I could see some of these folks again. I will add, and I probably shouldn't at this point, but it was so nice the day we all got together at a restaurant in Rhode Island. You were there with a couple of the other boys. That was probably the first time I saw 10 of them in years.
Yeah.
And I will add, I walked into the restaurant in character. I hope you remember that too.
I do. I'll never forget that.
I think your son was sitting there going, Dad, who's this? But it was even the guy at the front door. I said, no, I'm all right. I'm with I'll go around the corner. Just don't kill anybody. He said, I said, I'm fine. But yeah, so it was a lot of fun doing this wrestling. I had a ball with it. I just wish I could see some of these guys more often.
Yeah. So. And what advice do you have for somebody who's maybe just looking to get into the business for the first time?
work hard, make as many contacts as you can. Don't burn a bridge. If somebody tells you to stand in the corner on one leg, you go do it, because you got to get known as somebody who takes instruction. You don't want to cause issues. You want to follow the rules. Earn your time. You don't become number one from number 2,000. Work your way up. Take your time. And if you're truly interested, when you buy your time a little, you will make it. As long as you put the time, the effort, and you go steady the course, you'll be just fine. But it's patience. That's the word, patience. It doesn't come tomorrow, yesterday. It's patience. So.
And in closing, fast forward many years from now, when we're all gone, what do you want your legacy to be? How do you want to be remembered?
Well, like I said, Rex Havok was the greatest thing that happened to wrestling since they invented the tights. I want people to remember having a great time, going to the show and saying, boy, that guy was a lot of fun. That's all I did. I raised money for people. I want to make sure, a kid had a bone marrow transplant. The gym was new roof. We did the stupid things that the big guys are too busy to do. And with that, I was just happy that we were able to put that together. If somebody can remember 20 years from now, remember that guy, Rex? He was okay. I'm happy with that. So.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much for taking the time this week. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Well, thank you very much, Joe. I really appreciated this. So thanks
Absolutely.
for letting me come in, and please let's get together again. So anytime.
It's overdue for sure. For Rex Havok, I'm Joseph Bruen. This has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.